From March 2020 when the game launched up until November 2021, New Horizons received a significant amount of consistent updates. And these were absolutely amazing. They introduced some great new features to the game that were missing. Things like the Roost, boat rides with Cap'n, numerous quality of life updates and furniture items, and of course we can't forget the famous Froggy Chair, one of the best items in the game. But not every update to New Horizons was a good one. In fact, it could be argued that some new features and updates actually made the game worse. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the sheer majority of updates in the game were amazing and improved New Horizons so much. But like with every Nintendo game, not every new change is going to be received positively. So I've decided to make a compilation of some of my videos which show updates that didn't really make New Horizons better. First though, leave a like on the video if you wish we were still getting updates. I would take anything at this point. Hey Bob's gang, so starting us off, we actually have a feature that was unintended on Nintendo's part, but was still beloved by players. This was the secret waterfall glitch, which effectively allowed you to phase through a waterfall to make your own hidden location. Now, for some time, players went absolutely crazy with this, and they were working on making some really cool and well-designed areas using this secret technique. But rather than making it an official feature within the game, Nintendo decided to remove it entirely within an update. So this secret waterfall glitch got updated out of the game and it was never heard from again, which is really tragic. Having the ability to make your own secret blocked off areas would have honestly been a really cool official feature, and I don't know why Nintendo didn't just turn it into one. After all, this game ended up basically being all about designing and making your island your own paradise, so when they take some of that creativity away from us, that makes me sad. It's really sad. Hopefully in the next Animal Crossing game we'll be able to push the limits even more with terraforming, and they'll keep some of these glitches in mind, because despite the fact they're intentional, honestly it was such a genius idea for an actual feature, and I feel like Nintendo really missed the mark on that one. Just imagine all the cool things that you could hide within this secret area. For number 2, we have an update that unintentionally made things worse, so it's not really Nintendo's fault, but you know what, I gotta bring it up here. Sometime in 2021, before we got the huge 2.0 update, a minor update was released and it broke something significant in the game. It effectively made it so that one of your villagers could completely go missing for the entire day, and no matter where you looked, you wouldn't be able to find them anywhere. You could search within the museum where usually you would tend to find that one tricky to find villager who's gone missing, but nope, this time they weren't there, they had vanished into the Nether Realms. I think the most likely theory for this is that they were probably actually in the unfinished Roost, which did get data mined around this time. Since you weren't actually able to visit this place, it means that they were locked away somewhere where you could never see them. Either that or Nintendo just weirdly changed the spawn rate so a villager just couldn't appear, but I can't imagine them doing that on purpose. So yeah, I can't be too harsh on Nintendo for this one because it's an earnest mistake, it's not an intentional update, but still, it did make things worse for that little bit of time where this happened. For number 3, we're back to an intentional update that Nintendo made that honestly made things worse. Not hugely, but still, I do think it was a big shame. At some point, Nintendo must have decided that we were just making too many bells and that Tom Nook was way too generous for this version of Animal Crossing. Because they actually decided to change the interest rates for the ABD. They were reduced significantly. In fact, they were originally 0.5% to 0.05%. So yeah, a pretty big change. I guess even Animal Crossing got hit by the financial difficulties of the world. Honestly, this kind of change is definitely in character for Tom Nook, and as a little consolation prize, I do believe Nintendo gave out this bell bag rug, so I guess thanks for that, but the amount of bells that you get from the ABD now is honestly pitiful. Before, you could actually make a decent amount of money from this, but now, don't count on it, you're not going to be making much at all. We all know that Tom Nook absolutely loves his bells, and he's never going to be too eager to give them all away, but you know what, this just feels a little bit stingy on his part. In a way, it almost felt like this was a precursor for them actually adding in the ABD item to the game, which would make using this system a lot easier. So, I guess there were definitely some improvements in the ABD part of the game, but this interest rate change was definitely disappointing. For number 4, we're going to talk about an update to a particular feature within the game that honestly made it significantly worse. Sometime not even a year before Animal Crossing New Horizons has launched, Nintendo decided to make lots of changes to the Mystery Islands that you can go to via Dodo Airlines. For some of us, it was already hard enough to find most of these rare islands. We had to use our Nook Mile tickets, and if we weren't trading with other players, then we might have not had many. And for some reason, Nintendo decided to change the rates of many of these islands so that either you couldn't see them at all in the case of the Hybrid Flower Island that I've mentioned a few times, or made other ones much rarer. I've talked about the Hybrid Flower Island and its removal quite a few times on this channel, so I'm not going to go too in depth with that here, but basically it was an island that was filled with hybrid flowers and you had a rare chance of getting it. Instead, I want to talk about the rates that were made worse for some of the other islands that are still in the game. For example, the Mountain Island was changed from 9% to 8%, which, you know what, that's not that bad. But then take a look at some other ones. You have the Finned Fish Island, which is down from 1% to 0.5%, or the Gold Rock / Scorpion Island down from 1% to 0.3%. So yeah, those rates are honestly not great, and your chance of getting to see those islands then or now is still not amazing. I do get why Nintendo would want to make some islands rare, but I don't feel like anything should have dropped below 1%, which was already rare enough as it was. Even back when the game came out and we had the original rates, I was still really struggling, even with tons of Nook Mile tickets, to get certain islands. And now there are some that I don't think I've seen in an entire year or such, despite even doing a ton of villager hunting on these islands. I don't know why Nintendo would decide to make a feature that is already locked behind a decent paywall in the game much harder to use. I think there was a lot of potential for these islands to even add in new cooler ones as well, but we didn't really see that. Of course, we did eventually get the Kapp'n Islands and such, but you know what, I do prefer the original islands that we got. For number 5, we have one that happened much more recently, and it was the removal of the 4th level decorating glitch. If you've played the game since the start, you'll definitely know about the ability to decorate the 4th level on your island, something that now we cannot do. In the past, a glitch allowed you to do this, but alas, this is something that no longer is available in the game. Like with the waterfall glitch that we talked about in the start of the video, this is something that in my opinion made the game much better, and since decorating is one of the core themes, I feel like taking away some of that potential and not just turning this into a real feature was definitely a disappointment. To be fair though, my island is already crazy enough, so maybe I didn't need a 4th level to decorate on as well, but hey, some people might have wanted this, and definitely a lot of people use this glitch. Ironically, one of the features that a lot of us really wanted to see return from New Leaf into New Horizons ended up being one of the more controversial new update features in the game. So don't get me wrong, this feature didn't make the game as a whole worse, but it's fair to say that it's made quite a few people annoyed with their poor little villagers. So did this update make our villagers worse in Animal Crossing New Horizons? Well, let's take a look. With version 2.0, Nintendo added back a feature where villagers can randomly visit your home, provided that you're fairly close to them. This feature was practically the same as it was back in Animal Crossing New Leaf. At first, pretty much everyone was excited about this. After all, it was a new villager interaction, something that New Horizons definitely needed more of. But as more and more time has gone by, this feature seems to really grate on a lot of Animal Crossing players. With the 2.0 update, Nintendo gave us more reasons than ever to spend time in our homes and decorate them, especially if you have the Happy on Paradise DLC. But when a villager randomly shows up, they can interrupt this completely, and you'll have to stop what you're doing, either interact with them or leave your home and come back in again, just so you can continue what you were doing inside of your house. Now, this isn't the biggest deal in the world. It's not too much effort to have to leave your home and come back in again just to get rid of your villagers, but at the end of the day, interactions with your villagers should be something that you wholly enjoy, and for a lot of people, they really don't feel that way about this feature at all. In fact, one of my most popular videos which I shared on the channel a few months ago is a short teaching people how they can stop villagers from coming over to their home. Judging by the reception that it got and most of the comments, it seemed like the majority of players really did not enjoy this feature. Of course, that's not to say everyone. I'm sure there's plenty of people watching this video who do really like this feature and don't feel bothered by it at all, as of course we all have different playstyles. But I do think most people would agree that this feature could have been improved. It was actually data mined long before we got it in the game, so Nintendo had plenty of time to work on it and refine it, yet they pretty much brought back what we had in New Leaf. Despite that though, they actually took away the ability to schedule home visits with your villagers from New Leaf, which was a really helpful feature. I really think Nintendo could have made two simple changes to this feature that would have improved it for practically everyone. The first is a more simple pop-up when your villager arrives of them asking, hey, do you want to hang out right now? And you could say yes or no. If you said no, then they would go away without ever coming in, and you'd only have that slight tiny interaction. Of course, for the players who love to have their villagers come over, they can just click yes and the interaction can continue like it normally would. This simple little change would have required very little effort on Nintendo's part, and of course we all know that game development does take a lot of time, but a simple pop-up like this wouldn't have been unreasonable to add to the game in my opinion. Another idea would be to add a lock feature to our doors. We can change the doorways and such, so why not be able to press a little button that says door locked? Then villagers would not interrupt you at all and you wouldn't get any kinds of pop-ups provided that your door is locked. When you think about it, we really don't have great security in Animal Crossing. Anyone could just enter our house. I mean, most villagers have good intentions thankfully, but still, this would be a nice little feature. I also think it really doesn't help that the interactions you get with your villager when they come over really aren't that interesting, and after you've done them a few times, they become incredibly repetitive. I still think it is nice that Nintendo thought to add back this feature. Having more villager interactions is a good thing, but they definitely could have refined it more to make it super exciting when your villagers come over. The fact that they just give you a piece of fruit you already have or want to play the same card game every time just feels like a little bit of a letdown to me. It feels like we've lost a lot of the interactions that we had with villagers in past games. For example, hide and seek from Animal Crossing New Leaf is no longer in New Horizons. I kinda get why they didn't add this in because it would be much harder to play it in an island that is super terraformed, but still, it wouldn't have hurt to add this feature in. Our villagers are always talking about playing single player hide and seek, so why can't we join in? I do understand that for some people it might seem a little bit dramatic to say that this particular update made villagers worse in Animal Crossing New Horizons, but when you consider the many issues people have with villagers in Animal Crossing New Horizons, especially their interactions, I don't think it's completely unfair to say. Some simple changes like I mentioned earlier could have made this feature a positive for everyone, rather than something a lot of players see as an inconvenience to their day-to-day island life. I absolutely love interacting with my villagers, and I wish I could get more from them. They felt so alive in a lot of the past Animal Crossing games, and I really hope we see more of that in the next entry. I definitely think it'd be a shame if Nintendo saw that a lot of people are unhappy with this feature and they just didn't bring it back in the future, because that's definitely not what we want. We want to see this feature, but with those slight improvements that can make it more convenient for everyone. New Horizons was full of quality of life upgrades and such, so I feel like they could have added these in. Toy Day used to be one of my favourite events in Animal Crossing. It's been there since the very start. In fact, it's been in every game except Wild World. And of course, as you already know, it's in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, I do believe that the version we got in this game is still a good one. Overall, it keeps the general theme and idea of Toy Day intact. But when we consider some changes that Nintendo has made to this event, it's definitely gotten worse in my opinion. Now, just a quick summary, Toy Day is Animal Crossing's version of Christmas, of course, and it happens on December the 24th every year. In this event, Jing will arrive in your town or on your island, and he will bestow upon you some kind of task to get gifts from him and to help out your villagers too. Now, you might be thinking this is exactly what he does in Animal Crossing New Horizons, and that's true, but we actually have to look back at another game, Animal Crossing New Leaf, to see that Nintendo downgraded Toy Day in this particular version, and I honestly don't know why. Back in Animal Crossing New Leaf, although Toy Day happened on December the 24th, it actually had a really exciting build-up. Throughout the whole month of December, your villagers would actually hint to you about what types of gifts they would want to receive on Toy Day, a really interesting interaction that helped you get to know your villagers even better and maybe learn about some of the interests that they had. You would have to retain this information somehow, with them often giving you two different hints that would let you know exactly what type of gift to give them on the big day itself. If you forgot this information because you weren't paying attention to your villagers or you just didn't write it down, hey, we all make that mistake, then you may miss out on giving them the perfect gift, hence ruining their Toy Day forever. Ah, it's so beautiful. But in Animal Crossing New Horizons, there really is no build-up. Although we do get some nice little decorations appearing around our island at resident services and Nook's Cranny and such, which is definitely nice, and that in my opinion is a big improvement on Animal Crossing New Leaf, they don't have any of these villager interactions at all. Although you will be giving your villagers gifts on the big day, they don't give you any hints towards what they actually want, which means that it doesn't really matter what item you give them at all, hence taking away this really nice villager interaction that just makes you feel a little bit closer with the characters living on your island. Now, I really love the part of the event where you actually go and give gifts to villagers, especially in Animal Crossing New Leaf, and I do still think it has some fun merits in New Horizons too. But the fact that the gifts you give them really don't matter at all in the latest version, it just feels like a bit of a shame. I think it's fair to say that a lot of Animal Crossing players have had their fair share of complaints about the villagers in the series, and definitely one thing that has been a problem in New Horizons has been taking away some of the interactions they really loved back in Animal Crossing New Leaf and past games. For example, getting rid of the hide and seek feature, which I know a lot of people really enjoyed, although maybe would have been a little bit harder to implement with our crazy island designs in this version. But I just can't understand why they would take away your villagers hinting about the gifts they want throughout the month. I guess maybe their logic here is that it means players won't really have to pay attention throughout the month of December if they're busy, but I never really saw anyone complaining about having to do this back in Animal Crossing New Leaf, so I don't really see why it would have been a problem here. Effectively, what it feels like is they've really tried to simplify this version of Toy Day just to make things a little bit easier. I can kind of see where they were going with this, after all it can be such a busy day for people, but like I said earlier, I don't really remember many people complaining about this in the past. It really does feel like you don't need to put any effort in with this Toy Day event at all, so it's more just like a little exercise for Jingle. So as I'm sure you know already, the museum is the most upgradable building in Animal Crossing New Horizons. It has even more upgrades than Nook's Cranny, which is definitely a surprise to longtime fans of the series. However, it seems like for some reason in the 2.0 update, Nintendo has decided to remove one of the upgrades that you can actually get for the museum, and one of the important steps of upgrading it. One of my fellow content creators, Angry Coconut, let me know that they started a brand new island and they upgraded their museum tent into the building. However, this time it went straight to the version with the art gallery rather than the brown version that we saw before 2.0. This means that they completely skipped out on the step of meeting up with Red and then unlocking the art gallery later on. Now, at first I thought this could be some kind of exceptional glitch, but it seems like quite a few different people have experienced this, and Nintendo has made this change just so that unlocking the different stages of the museum will be a bit easier going forward. We got a brand new upgrade in the 2.0 update with Brewster and the Roost finally coming to the game, which was incredibly exciting, but in doing so it seems like they've removed one of the past steps. Now, although this is actually really convenient and it means you don't need to go through the hassle of donating enough to unlock the art gallery now, it does seem to mean that going forward you won't be able to get the brown version of the game that you could see before the 2.0 update. Now, I don't know about you, but I actually prefer this design to the one we've got currently. It didn't change when we unlocked the Roost either, so it's basically stayed the same for a really long time. It also means that the step where you meet Crazy Red walking around your island seems to not be a thing anymore either. Red will simply just show up with his art. Maybe once again this somehow ties into the fact that Red now shows up on Harvey's island, so they felt like this step just wasn't necessary. It's definitely a shame to see this go though, and honestly it does feel a little bit unnecessary to lock us behind one design for the museum. It would be really cool if we could choose which one our museum looks like, if we want the tent, or the more rustic style, or maybe just the current modern style that we have. However, on the flip side, it does mean that it will be easier to unlock the upgrades for the museum. Getting the art gallery was never that easy in past versions. It wasn't the most difficult thing, but it did take a little bit of work, and it seems like now you don't need to do that at all. Now, I'm not quite sure what will happen to this version of the museum if you've still got it on your islands. I'm sure plenty of you still do and that it exists within the game, but it seems like if you start a new file and you didn't already have this particular upgrade, you won't be able to see it again in the future unless Nintendo decides to adjust this later on. Like I said, it could be some kind of glitch, But honestly, it does seem purposely done with the fact the museum got another upgrade in the 2.0 version. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What changes and updates to New Horizons do you think made the game worse? And if we could see more updates to the game, what would you most like to see added? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you made it to the end, be sure to comment Bob's Gang so I know you did. If you enjoyed, leave a like and make sure to subscribe for more Animal Crossing content.